In this episode of Spotlight on the Arts, we speak with Haven Williams about his book, A Call to Arms, and more. Stay tuned.
And here we are in Spotlight on the Arts, joined by Haven Williams, educator, investigative researcher, writer here in Chicopee, and we are so thrilled to have him. Haven, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It is an honor to have you here because of the work you've done, you and your brother, with social justice. And it is very interesting that you have gifted the community with 2 books. So I really want to talk a little bit about those books. And I know that it all started with a book called The Good, the Bad, and the Blue.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Basically, my brother, one day he came home from work. He actually lives in Arizona. So he called me and we were talking. And he said, there are a lot of people being killed. And it bothered him. And we began to talk about it. And he said, well, I need to do some research on this to find out why this is happening and what is being done about it. Because it was happening, people were being killed, you'd hear it one time and then there was no more information about it. What was the reason, what was being done about it? And from that point forward, that's how the idea of The Good, the Bad, and the Blue was born.
And, so it started with an inquiry, it started with a concern. How did you and your brother go about in getting together the content of this book?
Well, for the most part, he already had an idea in his mind of how he wanted to do it, and I came in to help him to supplement that. One of the things that he did when he first started, he started looking at the individuals themselves, and then he started getting a little history about them, and then we started talking about how to develop that. We actually went online and we got pictures of those individuals, and then we started talking a little bit about some of the underlying issues that might be a cause as to why this issue of police brutality is not being addressed. And then from that point, we began to use our creativity, and we began to think about different ways we could present some of those social issues. For example, how language was being used to mislead people. Also, we talked a little bit about the law and how certain rules of law are not designed to help and support the civilian population, but they're designed to protect the police in implementing their job.
And those are definitely interesting factors and reasons why this book would be of importance to the community. How do you feel, or what do you feel out of this book is one of the most important elements that people should take away from it?
I believe one of the things that me and my brother, when we spoke about, he was really adamant about that. He said, hey, I want people to begin to talk and communicate and express their feelings, even if they're negative, about why this is happening.
Just getting the conversation going.
Getting the conversation going, because he felt that was really the key piece that people needed to begin to talk about this and not just sweep it under the rug.
Right,
Yep.
Right. And then, so after this book is released, that you collaborated with your brother, then it doesn't end there. The research and the inquiries continue.
Yes.
And that gives birth to A Call to Arms, which is your second book, correct?
Right, yes.
Tell us a little bit about that book.
Well, for me, because me and my brother, we are 2 different ends of the spectrum. For him, it was about getting people talking, communicating, getting those thoughts and feelings out. For me, because I come from more of an academic background, I wanted to go a little bit further. I needed to say, okay, what would this book need in order for it to be something that could be presented in a classroom, so that people not only are talking, but they take away something from the book educationally, academically.
Right.
So that was kind of the way I looked at it, and from that point I began to look at it and add different things in, look at it from different perspectives, look at the idea of social constructs. What are these things in our society that are creating this type of violence?
Right.
Because that's what police brutality is a form of violence, justified, rationalized violence. So from that perspective, I began to look and inquire. I also began to look at some of the rules and laws that allow police officers to even implement the rules of law, so to speak, where they're allowed to physically touch someone, assault, basically. It's an assault, basically, to touch someone or to restrain them, and what their obligations are and with respect to preserving that person's rights, to restrain them without violating their rights. How do they do that? What's the guidebook for that? Right. So with that idea, that's where the call to arms came from.
Nice. And as an educator, what do you feel needs to be changed or implemented in our system so that we can promote this change? It is our youth, the one that is going to be our future officers. It is our youth that's going to be the future victims of police brutality.
Yes.
Right? How, as an educator, do you feel that change needs to come about in the system, the current system, so that we bring about change?
That's a very good question. I don't have the full answer, but just taking it at first blush, what I would do, or what I think needs to be done, is that we kind of have to get back to basics with respect to education. Right. There needs to be a reversal, and we need to go back to the idea of civics. Right. How do our laws apply to our young people? Instead of sugarcoating things and not giving them the reality, the harsh reality of where our laws come from, that they come from trial and error, that you're dealing with imperfect human beings, so decisions are made that are not necessarily in the best interest of everyone who's going to be affected by them. But I think we have to get back to the idea of civics, right, law, and it needs to start at the earliest level possible, reasonable level possible.
Ignorance of the law does not exempt you from responsibility. So
no, but it is a valid defense.
How do we expect students to know? How do we expect the youth to just simply know what the laws are? There are some common sense laws, but
right. Well, common sense isn't all that common.
Right,
so
right.
we have to get back to it needs to be something that's taught in the schools.
Right.
Taught in the schools, because many times, especially youth who come from disadvantaged backgrounds, their perception and understanding of the law and how it's implemented is going to be different. Right. From a person that's raised in an environment where there's a respect for the law. The law is seen in a positive light within their community.
Right.
So you have to really get back to basics, but you have to also let the students know that there's a contrast.
Right, right. I definitely like the outlook that both you and your brother have been able to give in this conversation when it comes to starting the conversation, when it comes to elevating this to an educational or academic component. And I think that it's definitely a fight and a topic that is being had in different angles from different places, right? What do you feel politically can be done? Is that something?
That's one of the areas I have to do some more research on. We have to remember that with politics, the underlying issue is financial access to resources. So police officers their role is not so much to protect people, but it's to preserve a certain lifestyle. And that lifestyle is going to be around those people who have resources, access to those resources, preserving that access that those individuals have, and not having someone else come in and either force it to be dispersed so that there's a sense of more equality or parity or equal outcomes, however you want to look at it. But it's about people who are in control, maintaining that control, right, and which is control of those resources. So politically, it really is tough. There's a gentleman that I've started looking at some of his materials, Richard Wolff. I believe he's out of one of the schools, Amherst, UMass Amherst. And he says that capitalism is part of the problem, and that we have to move from capitalism to a sense of, he used the word socialism and communism, but not in their purest sense. But he used it to say that capitalism should move us as a society towards a democratic equality, if you will, mm-hmm, where the resources are dispersed so that everybody gets their fair share, but also everyone has a say in how those resources are used. And I think if people politically, if we can get to that state of mind where people are beginning to think about that and can appreciate that, then that may be a step in the right direction.
Right. And Haven, I'm also very curious about the creative process of coming up with your books, right? I often interact and deal with a lot of artists, different stages, different types of areas that are of their interest, and writing is one of them, right? I've met different types of writers and different type of topics. For you in particular, how was your creative process? How was your line of thinking? How did you organize yourself to come up with a final product?
Well, for me, once my brother brought the issue, he brought it to my awareness, so to speak, because a lot of times we don't really think about, we hear of police brutality, we don't really think about it. But for me, once he brought it to my state of awareness, one of the things that I did is, because I'm not afraid to ask those hard questions and do the research, I thought about it and I said, I put myself in one of those individuals' shoes or of one of the individuals who have been killed and said, what would I do or what would I want done if something like that had happened to me? And from that point forward, it's just now a matter of asking those hard questions, looking at it from the perspective of a brother whose brother has been killed, for example.
So it's interesting that for you, you feel that maybe your creative process was more of like putting yourself into the shoes of someone else, becoming a character and seeing things from their lens. And I think that's an interesting way of seeing it.
But it forces you, if you're going to do that, you have to be real about it, so to speak. You can't sugarcoat things, you can't hide from it, and you also have to begin to look at your own biases, your own prejudices, all those different things. And you kind of have to filter and weed through that, wade through those things, and then come to a harsh reality. Okay, there's something wrong here.
Right.
What do I do about it?
It is definitely a very artistic way of coming up with a book that impacts social justice and impact our community. For those that, there are many people out there that are interested in this topic and that are interested in fighting to make a better community, and definitely have had different types of conversations and engagements in the past with regard to this topic. I think that with the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that went on a few years ago, I think that there's resurges of the topic, right? At one point it becomes a hot topic when someone dies and gets shot, then it becomes a hot topic, and then it dies down again after one or two policies are put in place until the next murder, right? How do you feel that people can get involved and engaged in a way that it doesn't appear seasonal, right? How can people keep engaged continuously? What small changes can they make in their lives to fight every day?
That's a very, very good question. That really gets to the heart of the matter. I think being honest about it, if we look at it honestly, individuals are only going to be involved with something as long as they can benefit from it in some way, whether it be they are a family member of someone who was killed, or there's a way of bringing light to them in some way. If, for example, the Black Lives Matter group, it's a very good example. When somebody kills because of what they represent, they're able to come out and say, okay, we support this. And then after the lawsuit has been settled, or the family gets a certain amount of money, or Black Lives gets enough attention, then they move on to the next victim, so to speak. It's a very tough thing, but I think it collectively, individuals there has to be a common goal. Someone needs to put forth a common goal that all people can relate to at some level, because there was an issue that, which I'm doing a little more research on now, is that when the Black Lives Matter group came out, all of a sudden people began to say, well, all lives matter. But that kind of sugarcoats and takes away from the issue. It's not about all lives. All people are not being killed. Black people are being killed, or people of African descent, if you will, are being killed. So,
and What is next for Haven? You've gifted us with 2 books. Your research continues, your advocacy continues, your fight for social justice continues, your job as an educator continues. What is next for Haven?
Well, for me, I'm going to actually rewrite a little bit of I'm actually going to rewrite Call to Arms.
Your second book, right?
Which is my second book, right? I'm actually going to rewrite that. There were some issues that I didn't fully research, and as I've been doing more research and talking with various people and to a certain extent some various groups, there's some other issues that I need to really do a little research. Because when you think about it, a lot of what we see stems from economics, and there's a lot that can be done if people, for example, because of where I work at, if people are given a livable wage, then a lot of in my opinion, which is I haven't done the research on, but if a great majority of people were giving a livable wage, a lot of the violence would go away. Not all of it, but a lot of it, because people don't have to steal. You don't have to worry about where your next meal is coming from. We also moving in a society.
And it's so hard, now that you mention that, because I'd like to hit on that topic. It's so hard for people that are policymakers that are out of touch with the reality of society, where people have to choose to pay one bill or the other. People need to save, but it's hard for them to save. Right, the economics. You definitely bring it. It is a root of violence in many of in our neighborhoods and in our societies. But the policymakers have never perhaps been in a situation like that, so it's hard for them to understand and have that in mind when making policies to address the violence issue.
Exactly. So I think that's very important that we have to begin to look at the idea of economics.
Right.
And with that, it needs to be progressive. That not only do we give people enough resources to live a positive and productive life, but we put things in place. Education, access to educational resources, access to health care, something as basic health care. Those basic things, if those things are taken care of, then people can think about other things. They're not necessarily locked into poverty, what I like to refer to as a poverty-stricken mentality.
Right. And an influence of violence around.
Yes, an influence of violence, because poverty and violence, unfortunately, go hand in hand.
Right. Yeah. I am very honored to have had this conversation, to have talked about your books. I know that there are great things to come, and I remain hopeful about our society, knowing that there are people like yourself that keep these topics alive, that continue to do the research, and that do it because of a passion to make change, or simply for knowledge, and expecting nothing in return. You know, so when you have that conviction, I can see that you will continue to give us positive products, right, through your literacy and through your education.
Yeah, and just to highlight one important point, the books that I've written are free. There is no cost. A lot of these books are available at various public libraries. So if anybody wants to read, say, okay, what is he really talking about? Let me get a copy of the book. There's no money involved. You can read that. Me and my brother, we also do workshops. We do free open book dialogues at various libraries. We actually had one, I think about maybe 3 months ago, at the East Springfield Library.
Nice.
So we're constantly doing things to try to get the word out, get people interested, at least get people talking.
Right.
Yeah.
And where can people find your books?
My book is in several of the Springfield Public Libraries. As a matter of fact, not today, but probably later on this week, I'll be dropping a couple of the books off at the Chicopee Library.
Nice.
But it is available at Mason Square Library in Springfield, the Central Library in Springfield, East Forest Park Library in Springfield, and one or two other libraries. I don't remember the name off the top of my head because I've
how could organizations or institutions contact you if they wanted you and your brother to offer a workshop?
They can contact us via email. That's probably the best way. My email is halewi63@yahoo.com. So if you're interested, just send me an email and I'll be more than happy to connect you with my brother and we can make something happen.
Perfect. We have had a very interesting conversation, and we've learned about a great educator, artist, creator, promoter of change, I'd say. It's been an interesting time. Thank you for joining our show, Mr. Williams.
You're welcome.
And I hope that I wish you most success with your future endeavors in this topic and anything literary that you bring us. And I hope that you, our audience, have enjoyed the show, the topic, the conversation, and I will see you next time.